what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Battlefield Project podcast. I am your host, Matthew Rhoda, and we are the podcast for people who understand that life is a battle and only the strong will thrive. I'm joined by my good friend Lewis here, who I will introduce in a second. But before I do, I have one favor to ask of everybody who listens to this or any other episode. If you're listening to this episode or you listen to another episode and you got some value out of it, and or you feel like, hey, this message is relevant and might help someone that you know and love, please share the episode with them. The point of this podcast is pretty simple. I want to shine a light on our guests and have them be vulnerable and talk to our audience about certain battles that they've experienced in their life and then how they fought and overcame those battles. Because I think far too often people assume that successful, happy people had the red carpet laid out in front of them all their lives, and that's why they're living a good life. But that is never the case, or at least 99.99% of the time, that is not the case. Everybody has battles. Everybody has struggles. What separates the winners from the losers in life are winners fight their way through those battles and they come out stronger on the other side. So that is the point of this podcast. So if you gather something like that from it and you're listening and you think, hey, my sister, brother, friend is facing something similar, maybe they should hear this because it can help them fight their way through that battle, please share it with them. I would really, really appreciate it. All right. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce my good friend Lewis here. Lewis is a serial entrepreneur located in New Brunswick, Canada. With a background in construction and trades and a degree in mechanical engineering, Lewis started a business doing digital marketing for contractors in 2019. With no formal business or sales experience, he has ridden the roller coaster of business and personal development and surrounded himself with coaches and mentors who have helped him grow and develop. He is the owner of Blue, is it Crocus?
Crocus, yeah.
Blue Crocus Solutions, a digital marketing company providing web design, SEO, and Google Ads to contractors. As well, in May of 2021, he partnered with and helped grow a local junk removal company using these result-driven marketing tactics. Lewis, man, thanks for being here. I appreciate you, brother.
Matt, really appreciate you having me on. It's an honor after some of the guests you've had on.
My pleasure, man. I love the part of your bio. You called it a roller coaster of business. Man, I
we'll get into that a little bit
myself. Here. Yeah, man, I could not have said it better myself. So yeah, whatever battle you've experienced, I would love to hear about it. And I'm sure our audience could benefit from hearing and learning from you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And I think, you talked a little bit about this in the intro, but we all have something, and 99% of us, look like we're okay on the outside, but there's always something hiding in the background. And for the longest time, I was that person, right? Especially when I got into entrepreneurship in 2019, starting my own business, I was the guy posting rah motivational posts. I was the guy, kind of calling people out, like being like, if this is you, then you got to get your act together. And what I realized is in the fall, winter of 2020, is I was from everything, all of my demons, for food. But I really grew up in a household that was extremely religious, very critical. And so I was always running towards getting some sort of approval. I was always running from the pain of not being good enough, right? And that followed me. That followed me hard. I procrastinated massively through university, even though university was my decision to go to university. I procrastinated on my if you will, or I was always running from the pain of doing the thing that I needed to do to move myself forward, right? And that kind of came to a head in 2020. We didn't have twins. We had our second child, our daughter, and everything just seemed to come down around me. I realized, our first child, like our son, kind of skated through. Everything was fine. Then the second one came, and we're both up in the middle of the night. Clients start leaving. It just was this whirlwind of things that all culminated in the lowest point in my life up to that point. It was gotten to the point where we've always known that we wanted 4 kids. And Alyssa looked at me in about May. So our daughter was born in November of 2020. And she looked at me in May of 21. And she's like, I don't think we can do this. I think we're going to have to stop it too.
Yeah.
We just aren't going to make it as a family if we keep going like this. You're not showing up as a husband. You're not present for the kids. all of this, and like she came back crying. Like, she had gone grocery shopping, she came back crying, and she's like, I'm at peace with it. Like, I would rather us just have two kids
Yeah.
and stay together as a family. And it's like, it hits me now harder than it hit me then when she said it. I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but then it was like, okay, cool.
Yeah. That's
Great.
life.
Like,
Okay.
honestly, I felt relief, to
Yeah.
be totally honest with you. I was like, great, because this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I would have said on the outside, like, oh yeah, we want to have four kids and everything, but it was not long after that I had to get real with myself. And I'll get into it a little bit, but um, I did not like being a father. I found the kids a nuisance. Like, I was so tied up in the business, in trying to keep our relationship alive. They kept us apart. As we hadn't really navigated how to fit in good quality time in and around being parents, right?
Yeah.
And I found the kids a nuisance. I was like, on the outside, it was like, oh yeah, great for social media engagement, post pictures of the kids and stuff. But it kind of hit me when she said, I don't think have more than two. And so what happened was she basically, over the next month or so, we got, pretty serious with where things were going. It wasn't ever getting to the point of divorce. It was just like, we're setting our dreams aside because you can't handle it.
Yeah.
Was ultimately where this was going. I was grumpy. I was sharp with her. I wasn't, we weren't connecting emotionally. Um, and she basically said, like, I think, whatever direction we had, whether eventually we have kids, like, you need to go see someone.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel pretty inadequate when that happens. Because I grew up Christian. I grew up, kind of have your act together, right? And
Yeah.
and on the outside everything looks good. And I was like, well, who am I going to see? Like, I don't want to just have someone, like, well, I grew up in a family that, like, therapy was considered like weak,
Yep.
right? And it was a sign of you not being, it was a sign of a bunch of things, right? It was just kind of, you kind of always turned your nose up at people, oh, they're going to
Yeah.
see a therapist,
Yeah.
right? So there was that. And that's even, I watched Alyssa go through social work, and her training for therapy, right? And I saw the value of that. But me going to someone,
Yeah.
so I said, Alyssa, I'll start looking. I said, I don't think anybody that you're going to refer me to is going to be someone that I'm going to want to go to. I said, I
Yeah.
think I need to do this on my own terms. And I need to start looking. And it wasn't a week later that I saw someone post a book in their stories. I love reading. He posted a book. It was called Prison of Your Own by Sean Crane. And I reached out to this friend and I said, what's this book? He's like, oh, it's my coach. He wrote this book and whatever. So I ordered the book. It came the next Monday. I read it in like 3 days and I
Yeah.
broke down crying when I was reading it. And I was like, this guy is like faced everything that I'm facing right now. And to give you an idea, I said, oh, I hit rock bottom, hit a dark place. I remember there was a time we were lying in bed and we were going through, Alyssa has a social work psychology background, so she was trying to help me, but it got to the point where one of the things she said is, I can't raise three kids.
Yep.
I've got the two kids. I don't have the bandwidth to also coach you through whatever you're going through.
Yeah.
But one of the questions she asked me was, if you were your dad and you were talking to your 11-year-old or 5-year-old self, what would you say? And that point is when I realized, whoa, I've got something going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I cried for 15 minutes, like uncontrollably.
Yeah.
It's that feeling is welling up in me again, right?
Yeah.
And what it was I couldn't even imagine myself in the position this happened, right? The lack of empathy, the lack of love, the lack of care. And I cried like the whole body shaking, ripping your soul apart, crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit out, like, I wanted to sit in that moment and I wanted the crying to fix everything, right? But what came out was like, there's a lot of ground that needs to be turned over and needs to be brought up. So back to the story of the book, I read the book, added Sean on Facebook, the author of the book. Right after I finished it, I was like, Sean, this book is like really hitting home for me. I'd love to
Yeah.
connect with you for like a 15-minute call. I didn't know this guy before.
Yeah.
I just found him on Facebook, connected. We ended up connecting, had a Zoom call like 3 days later. So it's been like a week max.
Yeah.
2 weeks since Alyssa said you've got to, find someone. And it's a case of when the student's ready, the teacher will
Teacher
appear.
appears. Yeah.
I jumped on with Sean that day into his program. And basically what it was, I think he's had some variations on it since then, but what it was for me was going back and digging up some of those old things that I didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
So that was in April, I think, of 21, April of 2021, that I started working with Sean, and it was brutal. It was brutal having to go through and the exercises of going back to see where was this pain that I was running from coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know it was there. I just overate. I watched YouTube incessantly instead of working on clients' projects.
Yep.
I would procrastinate to the max. I was running from any pain that showed up in any form or fashion because I was in such a survival state. And so it was going back through that pain of not being loved, not being accepted, not ever being good enough for the God that my parents worshiped.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And digging that up. And regular journaling was a big deal for me. I'd always journaled, only in the bad times, right? I was like, oh, I'm having such a horrible time, and then you stop as soon as everything gets good.
Yeah.
But it was consistently waking up and just writing down thoughts. I obviously, Sean recommended a few books. One that really helped me was from side of those things that you've been running from. And fast forward to September of 21, I said to Sean, I said, for the first time in my life, I'm proud of myself. I actually am starting to like and love Lewis. And that was a huge moment for me. I was never good enough at anything. I was never, and this manifested in self-hate, in bullying. I was always a bully growing up.
Yeah.
And eventually, when the craziness of business and life come together, it's like the perfect storm of you're not good enough for anything. You're not a good husband. You're not a good father. You're not a good business owner. And there's not a whole lot a man can do under that sort of weight over a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
You eventually, at least I did, I broke, right?
Yeah, so you crack and break.
I cracked, and it took Alyssa basically saying, hey, our whole dream, it's gone because of you.
Yeah.
Right? So then September of 21, working through all of this, and then kind of coming back so it was about a year later, Alyssa looked at me, we had conversations all through this, right? And she said, like, what do you think? Like, so we opened the conversation, and we've had our third, and there's hope for a fourth, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the underlying message for anyone who's listening is, one, don't be afraid to reach out. And two, find someone that can listen to you. Find someone that can help you work through your crap, because there is a mess in the message. I think, I'm still figuring out what the message is for me. And this is, having a chance to talk about it like this, it always brings it clear into focus. But there's so much that we run from. There's so much that I was running from. And now it's, you're an example of this. You push into the pain. I tried 75 hard 3 times in 2019 and 2020. And I couldn't do it. It always became too much pain on top of all the other pain I was running away from. And I can say that comfortably now.
Yep.
Before I was like, oh, I'm a failure. I can't tell anybody that I failed 75 hard. Like, there's a lot around whether you finish it or not.
Yeah.
Right. And so everything I started became another notch in the belt of you're a failure.
Yeah.
Because anytime pain happened, anytime hunger, with a client for the kids, again, I was a failure. So it was, now I can look back and, start to look at life as a curiosity thing. It's like, I wonder what I was thinking there. Wonder why I had to snack last night. I wonder what was driving that.
Yeah.
Instead of, Lewis, you're the worst person that ever lived on the face of the planet, right?
Yeah, how dare you? Everything you do, everything you touch is like screwed up. You're like, I just can't get ahead. I can't win.
Exactly. Exactly. And so now, back to the back to the motivational posts, try and make it more about me, because I think I've so much more compassionate for the
Yeah,
human race as a whole. It's like I thought it was perfect, and now it's like, wow, I think we're all walking around with a brokenness inside us that's got to be found and discovered, and you know forged in the fire, and you come out on the other side. But
yeah,
it's yeah, it's quite a journey. It's still an ongoing journey, obviously, right?
yeah. Dude, good for you, man. For A, getting through all that and accomplishing what you have and being the person you are, but also just sharing that story. Because I think that's the first. So I've heard, this whatever episode 26 or 7, and I haven't published them all, but there's been some themes that kind of pop up. This is the first that a guest has gotten one, and like I can say this with confidence, and you're not gonna take it, but like admitted that like it was too much. Like it was just like because of the pain that was never addressed, and like the wounds that you had from childhood that were never addressed and kind of were suppressed. Because if you weren't carrying those burdens around from childhood that you didn't even at the time know you had, having a second kid, running a business probably wouldn't have felt as heavy as it did. You might have not even had that conversation with your wife because it may not have been that apparent that she needed to address that with you. But because that amplified by what you were carrying around from your youth, it's just like I hear it's not the first time in the last like 6 months or a year that I've multiple people, and it's messages I've been getting of like having to heal your wounds from like your childhood. And to most adults, and even to me, the first couple times I heard it, I'm like, okay, like what does that even mean? Like you're of course you're hurt as a kid, like you're yelled at, and like, but some of the people I like hear and I listen to, they're like, it's as small as like a teacher in third grade said like that's a stupid answer. Like what, like 3 seconds of your reality from way back when can like stick with you and affect you in the adult life because you like internalize that, and then that led to other things amplifying that message. And now instead of feeling like you're smart and you can solve any problem, it's that third grade, and you don't even remember it, but like it's that third grade teacher's voice in your head that said that's a stupid answer, and now you don't want to talk. Like it's so crazy to think that. And now like, so it's so crazy to think that you can be molded like almost permanently at that age. And then as a parent, you'll get this, but like shit, like what a
Yeah.
responsibility that puts on our shoulders as parents to
Yeah.
like do our very best. And we'll all make mistakes. And like, I raise my voice with my kids almost on a daily basis, probably because like our 4-year-old and 2-year just don't want to listen to me ever. And I'm like, I asked 3 times nicely and I still don't get like them to do what the basic thing I'm asking. So I'm like, okay, daddy's got to use his loud voice now. And like, I use it. And then I'm like, I didn't really want to have to do that. Like, is that going to not
Yeah.
scar them? But like, are they going to carry that into their future? I'm like, shit, well, like, I don't want to screw them up, but like, I got to
Yeah.
discipline them. They got to listen. They have to respect authority. But man, like, I love this. I love your story, dude, because I think it's probably the majority of people. I doubt there's many people out there that are walking around that one of two things. A, still don't know it exists, and that's why they struggle in their adult life. Or
Mhm.
B, they do know it exists. They did the work like you did, and that's now why they're succeeding in life and enjoying their life because they addressed that issue. I think that it's a huge lesson for people to understand because it's not, why can't Lewis figure out like I'm an adult and I wanted kids, now I got kids, why can't I be happy with this situation? And like on a superficial level, all that can like eat at you because you're like, what the hell? Like I got what I wanted. This is what I've been like wishing and dreaming for. This should all feel great. Like, and I have a business that I'm starting. This should feel great. Why does it not feel great? And it's because something happened like for years or one moment in time way back then that hasn't been addressed. Like that is such, what's soul work, I think my one buddy calls it. Like it's deep soul work on like, the previous version of you. And I'm like, shit, man, like it really is that important to do because if you don't, it's going to keep getting in your way. It's either going to be your kids are a nuance or your wife is a nuance. And this isn't, you be like, you cheated because you didn't deal with your stuff. So then she's the problem, even though you're the problem. Or I mean, your business fails because your clients are the problem. No, you're the problem. Like, and it always comes back to like, I'm the problem. Like, I'm the problem, but I'm
Yeah.
also the solution. And when you come to that realization, you understand you have that power. Like, how magnificent can it be to free yourself from those chains and live the life that you want to live?
It's magnificent, but it's the most terrifying spot to have to reach in your life.
I
Because
bet.
when it comes down to you being responsible, then it's like, well, what's been happening all this time, right? I thought it was
Yeah.
this person's fault, and I thought it was Alyssa's fault because she, provoked me. I thought it was the kids' fault because they weren't
Yep.
doing this.
Yep.
When it all comes back on you, it's yes, it's empowering once you embrace it, but man, that is a hard place to
Scary as
have to.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because then you got nothing to lean back on, right?
Yeah.
And it and it's yeah, it's kind of the starting point.
That's when you got to look in the mirror and be like, okay, like I am the source of all of this pain and angst in my life. And it's like, crap. Like, okay, like
Yeah,
cool, because now I can fix it if I'm strong enough and I want to bad enough. Like, cool, but like also like, uh-oh. Like, in order to fix it, like, it's not my wife has to do work and my kids need to do the work. Like, of course they do cosmically, we all do, but like I got to do the fucking work. And if I don't, like, uh-oh, like it's just going to stay where it is. And that's a big responsibility, a heavy responsibility to have on your shoulders. But also, as you're like a testament to right now, like it's possible. And once you fight your way through, and I still have my internal work that I do, I'm sure you'll still have your internal work that you need to do, but like, and it's a lifelong thing. But once you start going down that path, like what a beautiful path it can be for you.
I mean, it is a path, right? Once you take that ownership, it's funny you mentioned about the kids, right? And all of us as parents, you wonder about your parents, right? We thought they
Yeah.
knew everything, but it's
Yep.
like, man, we're just trying to do the best we can. And they were probably hating themselves the whole process
Yeah.
through,
Yep.
looking at it. But then at a point as a parent, you're like, well, I've done it. Now I've got to stick to my guns, right?
Yep.
And so we're all just going through life learning. And I think that's a scary and a wonderful thing because you
Yeah.
look at all the people around you. And now I used to look down on them, honestly. It's
Yeah.
like, what addictions? Like, come on.
Yeah.
I am addicted to my phone. I'm addicted to snacks. I'm addicted to numbing myself with shows or just
Yeah.
random videos. Right,
Yep.
Reels is a great example, right? And so it's like, what's the difference? Whether it's
Yeah.
drugs or your phone, it's still sucking the life out of you. And so there's a lot of compassion there, but then there's a lot of like, Alyssa and I talk about this all the time, and I think Alyssa's her journey in her workplace is changing the kids to change the world. And she's writing a book as she is a mother and going through that process.
Awesome.
But it's like we're all damaged people, no matter
Yeah.
how good of a family we came from. We're all damaged people, so there's a lot of compassion that needs to be had.
Yep.
And when you see someone struggling, reach out. It might make the difference. I didn't get to the point of sitting on the side of the bed with a gun like you were talking about before.
Yeah.
One of the guests was on here, but I honestly, I don't think I had the balls to do that. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
I don't think I had the balls to ever get to that, but I got to
Yeah.
the point. I guess I didn't share this, but there was points I kicked my foot through the kitchen wall.
Yeah.
I punched a hole in our wall because I was so angry, right?
Yeah.
So angry with myself. I was so angry at myself for not being good enough and getting us to that point, right? But we all struggle in different ways, man. And it's
Yeah.
it's um it's incredibly exciting and powerful once you can realize that. But
Yeah.
getting there it's a hell of a journey.
Yeah. And then included in that is, I think, forgiving yourself for whatever like hardship. I'll share something with you in this, like, yeah, as we're having this conversation, because I'm like, you're pulling at like parts of me. I'm like, yeah, I have I had a big burden on my shoulders growing up because I was like the star athlete. I went to high school. I had a younger brother who's 3 years younger than me, who I was kind of setting an example for. And in high school, if you've ever listened to me talk on like other podcasts, like I started doing drugs, got in trouble with the law. That followed me through college, like more drugs, more trouble with the law. And when I finally got my act together, I still didn't feel totally complete with like my act was really together because I had so much guilt and shame and like, I don't know what the other adjectives are, but whatever you could combine with guilt and shame, that I set the worst example for my younger brother. And I had a hard time forgiving myself for that. That like and maybe he looked up to me, maybe he didn't, I don't know. But as an older brother, I felt like that was my responsibility. And I took the wrong road, and he didn't follow me down that road, thank God. But he could have followed me down that road. And that's something that took me years of like internalizing and having conversations with myself. and just trying to find peace with it, that was part of my story. And like, I have to love my whole story, but that's something that hung like, and still hangs on to me, like to a certain extent. Like when I make a lot of decisions, it's, am I being a good example for my younger brother? And like, is like superficial as that might sound, because I have two older sisters and like there's a million people in the world I can aspire. I look at that as like, that's my responsibility as a big brother, is like to set the example. And back then I dropped that ball tremendously. And it's something that still, like, I've forgiven myself to a large degree, but it still sticks with me at times where I'm like, shit, thank God he didn't follow my lead. But like, how dare me potentially have led him down the wrong path, and what would have happened if he would have followed my lead, blah, 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 blah. But just goes to
What do you
show.
think, where did that come from?
What's that?
Like where did you feeling the need to set the example for your brother come from?
I don't know. Also born and raised in a very like Catholic, like, go to church, live by the book kind of family growing up.
Yep.
And I'm
Yep.
super grateful for 95% of that, because it gave me faith and gave me like a spiritual connection and all the above. But we call it like the Catholic guilt. Like,
Yep.
growing up, it's like the Catholic guilt. Like, if you don't go to church, you're going to go to hell. It's like, geez, like that's a big burden to carry, that like if you skip church, you're going to hell. Like, God, like I'm a good person, like I love other people, I want to do good, like, but if I skip church, they go to hell. Like, oh God, this is like
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
much pressure.
Yeah.
It was probably tied into something like that, like I just constantly felt like if I didn't do that, like it's a big screw up, and God was going to like come down and be like, da, 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 like you're not doing what you need to do, and that means hell's in your future. And I'm like, that's a burning forever place with the devil with a pitchfork. Like, that's pretty fucking scary. I don't want to go there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was yeah, we're all damaged goods, man. Like, that's, I think, the gist of this episode, this conversation, is that like no one is perfect, no one has it all together, everyone's trying to figure it out as we go, and to have compassion for other people, like you said, because nobody deserves like ridicule, resentment, because we all have our own struggles that we're facing. And the more people can lock arms together and fight together to be better people, the world's a better place, as opposed to pointing fingers at each other and be like, hey, Lewis, like you're addicted to your phone, like you suck, you should be like, no, man, like, what, you're your phone, I'm fitness, like, I can admit that, like, I crave fitness, and like, is that healthy? Like, I don't know, maybe it's a little too much, like maybe I could reel back, I don't know, like, but we all have, that's again an internal conversation I have with myself, like I'm an addictive personality. It was drugs and alcohol and like that kind of life, and now it's been replaced with family and fitness and all that stuff, and I'm addicted to being the best that I can be. Is that unhealthy? I don't know, but it's a conversation I have with myself, because I'm like, is there that like moderation that I should be seeking? I don't know, but like it's that theory of, we all have those conversations that we fight ourselves with, and the more compassion we can have with each other, the better place the world would be.
And isn't that what makes life beautiful, right?
Yeah.
We're all snowflakes with our jagged edges,
Yep.
and how we
Well
fit
said.
together, how we can all fit together. That's what makes life beautiful.
Yeah. You got any final words, man? I feel like that like sums up. I feel touched by this episode, and I'm like, I don't know if I've said some episodes hit me kind of deep. The one recently like pulled at my heartstrings, because he had twins and the one died before birth, and that hit home when
Oh
I was
man.
listening to that. So, but
Wow.
this one just like, because I'm a business owner, I'm a dad, like, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of like weight that you carry. It's, it's fun. I can't say enjoy every second. I enjoy it, but it's stressful at times, and it's like overwhelming at other times. So you sharing that, I'm like, listen, I'm like, I appreciate him sharing this, because I didn't share the extent of what you went through, but I share like elements of what you went through. And I think for people to hear that, it's necessary, because nobody's waking up all day, every day, just crushing life without any concerns or struggles.
No, no, that's the social media reel. I mean, I think the final thoughts would be, something that I keep thinking about, myself, right? It's if there's something that, you consistently run up against, for me, it's snacking, my phone use, stuff like that. There's something, for you, it could be something different. For someone else, it's something different, right? We all have our addictions,
Mhm.
but there's probably something that you're running from. That's what I've noticed with myself, is I'm running from something, whether it's facing the hard conversation, whether it's doing the thing I don't want to do, whether it's just running from the pain, right?
Mhm.
So have compassion for yourself. If you don't know how to do that, find someone who can help you do that, because it's a hard thing to figure out how to do if you
Yeah.
weren't raised, having that. But there is a life where you don't have to hate yourself for every second decision you make. And
Yeah.
even when you make the decisions, like I make decisions now that are sometimes the same as what I made 3 years ago.
Yep.
But the reaction to them, that I would have had a very bad reaction to 3 years ago, and would have spiraled me.
Yep.
But now it's like, interesting, Lewis, what's going on? Like, let's get curious here. Let's take a look at what's actually, you know, making this chain reaction happen, right?
Yeah.
Get compassionate with yourself. If that's too airy fairy for you, try to hate yourself less, because
There you
you're
go.
someone loves you. If
Yeah.
you're not that person, there are people that love you. So find a way to figure out how to love yourself, to like what you are, because you've got a lot going for you.
So you
And I think
deserve it.
that you deserve it. And there's a lot of people that want to see you like yourself the way that they like you.
Yeah. Beautifully said, my friend, man. Thank you. I appreciate this. Where can people find you online with your business and or personal, so they can connect with you and learn from you and be inspired by you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. And once again, really appreciate the opportunity to come and share a bit of my story. LewisVandervalk.com is kind of my version of a link tree. So it's a personal website, links out to our agency site, to my Facebook profile, LinkedIn, all of that. So that's probably the easiest way to get in touch.
Perfect, man. I love it. That's what I have my MatthewRota.com. And I'm like, just go there and you can find everything. Sometimes guests come on, they're like, da 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 da. I'm like, I'll put it in the show notes, because there's no way you just remembered any of that. Like, there's like 18 different places. I'm like, just put it in one spot where people can go and click and find everything else that they want. So smart man, dude. Awesome, man. Well, thank you for being here, audience. Thank you for listening. Yeah, I was gonna. The next thing I was about to say is, any guys out there that hear this, but this is female. Like, this is a message for men and female. Like, it's not just men who have, businesses and are struggling with raising kids and family life. That's a pressure that women feel just as much as men do. So let me retrace time and not say that, and just say this message is for anyone out there that's, working, raising families, feeling that pressure, not completely loving themselves, and kind of confused as to why is that the case, and why, like, what can I do to get past that. Please share this with them, because I think Lewis shared a ton of information, insights that can positively impact people, and that's the point of the show. So if we can touch one life and have a ripple effect across the universe, that is our goal here. Lewis, thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Yep, I'll see you on the battlefield.